of going to rescue her.
This is a disaster. And then I may say, NADMO, you don't see any effort of the NADMO. They are not here doing anything. I just saw one lady writing names, not doing anything. Only having paper, writing names. That's all they are doing. And then I even approached the police, Ghana Police Service at Midday to assist with their vehicle. They have their vehicle being packed. They said they don't have food. We are ready to give them food, but they refuse to help people. I don't know, the police, are they there to only for crimes, or they are there to serve the public? I don't know. I think their commander needs to answer this question.
So some residents there who have been bemoaning the challenges, and I mentioned how this is fast becoming a health crisis. Cecilia Sunu is joining us on the telephone line. She is with the health advocacy group, Non-State Actors in Health. She's joining us on the telephone lines right now. Madam, many thanks for speaking to us this afternoon. A real likelihood of the outbreak of cholera and other diseases. What should be the intervention now from health officials, as everyone appears to have been taken by surprise?
Good afternoon, and thank you for contacting me, and good afternoon to your listeners. I think the first thing we have to do is to really start educating people on drinking a clean water, or making sure that we get clean water to them, because fine, you already talked about it. This is the time cholera will definitely come. People will start having dysentery. Children will start having diarrhea because they will be drinking that water. And so we need to ensure that they are safe. They are able to get good water. If we have to supply proper clean water for them as soon as possible, it will be cheaper than waiting for mass diarrhea or cholera to come before we start treating them.
So we need to start treating the water that these persons will be taking in already, considering that they've been taken by surprise. We've had some interaction with the health officials within the region who say that they are beginning to put their acts together to step in. How quickly should the response be within the next few hours?
I think this is a public health emergency. I mean, this is something that we have to really need to mobilize resources, call on philanthropists, everybody to come to their aid. We sympathize with them, the people in this situation, and we hope that the Ghana Health Service and all the health bodies in the region, in those districts, will quickly support them and ensure that they get the right thing, the right water, the right food to eat. Even we can also call on pure water, those who are producing water around to support. So that's why I'm talking about philanthropies. When these things happen, we all need to support our own, and we need to come to their aid. I know the health sector will be doing their part, but we all need to support them. They alone cannot do it.
I think perhaps the final thing is we've seen an attempt by some hospitals to move the dead bodies to other hospitals. Is that enough now in this context, considering that there are graves potentially that are around as well, which could be a hotspot for all kinds of diseases?
Yeah, so it is another serious thing, because if the water has already, the place has already got flooded, that means that the water from the dead body has already gone into the water, and that is the water that people are drinking. So as you rightly said, a lot of diseases, we can get a lot of outbreak of several diseases out of what is happening now. And so the earlier we start educating and supporting the people in the communities, the better. I know moving dead bodies is one, but it will not solve the problem. And so we need to address it holistically to protect life, to ensure that we don't get disease outbreaks like cholera, dysentery, and all other waterborne diseases affecting the people.
Right then, madam. I appreciate that you could speak to us.
Thank you.
Cecilia Senu is with the non-state actors in health. Let's switch now. Thankfully, we've been joined by the acting Volta Regional Director of Health, Dr. Senanu Kwesi Jokoto, this afternoon. Doc, many thanks for speaking to us as well. In terms of the preparations and the actions that need to be taken at this particular time, what has the Volta Regional Health Directorate been doing over the last few hours?
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to you and all your listeners. Let me begin by making this correction. The Regional Director of Health Service for the Volta region is Dr. Chris Santos Kubio, under whose instructions I'm speaking. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Health for the Volta region. I acted.
Right. Yes, it was in an acting position for a while.
Yeah, so the Regional Director now is Dr. Chris Santos Kubio, under whose instructions I'm speaking. We are mandated as a health service to coordinate with all relevant institutions to respond in times like this under our disaster risk management protocols. So as a result, the health service in the Volta region has already begun and has almost concluded working on the emergency preparedness plan for all the affected districts. So in this case, South Tong, North Tong, and Central Tong. We are also adding the tidal wave affected districts, that's Ketu South Keta, and Anglong. So what we are looking at is, first of all, to ensure that the populations are safe. We are looking at specifically the safety of our health workers in the affected areas. So some of them have been evacuated and they have been sent to safe haven so that they can continue to provide service. Number two, we are assessing the disruption to the delivery of essential health service. And this is ongoing, so that we put in contingency measures to be able to deal with this. Number three, we are also looking at the risks that are involved so that we can take appropriate measures. Number four, we have to communicate to the communities that have been affected on positive health-seeking behavior and conduct so that we are able to avoid some of these potential diseases. So we are looking at waterborne diseases. We are looking at conditions like malaria because of exposure to the vagaries of the weather at this time when people have to move out and stay in camps. So we are looking at all of that. So there's a comprehensive plan that is being led by our Regional Director of Health Service, Dr. Chris Santos Kubio, in collaboration with the Regional Minister, who is the head of the Regional Public Health Emergency Management Committee. We are working with NADMO, we are working with environmental health within the Volta region. And within the next few days, you'll see a lot of manifestations of our preparedness to deal with this particular disaster.
Right, Doc, but do the residents now have few days? That's really the concern, because VRA says they don't know when the spillage is going to stop. Do they have a few days to which the manifestation will begin to be seen?
I didn't say that we are going to wait a few days to begin. We've begun, but right. I'm saying that certainly the manifestations will be more obvious on how this disaster is being dealt with from the health perspective to those on the outside. So, for instance, we are doing our risk communication. For now, we are assessing the risk that may not be readily manifested to you as a media stakeholder, but in a couple of hours or a couple of days, you'll see the manifestation of the work that we have done from the assessment and the interventions that we are putting in place. As part of our preparedness plan, we have also looked at the disaster and the extent to which it can go, so that we can do our contingency arrangement. So we are very obvious of the magnitude of the disaster at hand, and we are applying all seriousness to ensure that life and property are protected in this difficult moment. So let me express on behalf of the health service our sympathy to those who have been affected, and for them to know that we are with them every step of the way.
Right then, Doc, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon.
Thank you very much and have a good day.
Right, that's Dr. Senanukwesi Jokoto. He is the Director of Public Health with the Volta Regional Health Directorate, speaking to us this afternoon on the situation. They were hoping that we could touch base with my colleague Armstrong Godalogwe just briefly, because we also know that the former President John Mahama will be visiting affected areas shortly. But from one flooding situation to another, and some schools in Buipe in the central Gonja district of the Savannah region have been closed down as flood waters from the Volta Lake continue to inundate the community. The area has been battling flooding since last month after a sustained period of rainfall displacing thousands of residents, and the situation has not abated. Paramount Chief of the Buipe traditional area, Buipeura Jinapo, he's been calling on the National Disaster Management Organization, corporate bodies and philanthropists to come to the aid of residents. And Christopher Mwako as well is our man there. He is joining us with the details as to exactly what the situation is. A month-long situation there, Chris. Many thanks for joining us. It's been a month since the first flooding incident was reported. It appears that it's not gotten any better.
Yes, Mawuena, this is very true, because as of yesterday, the flood waters has affected yet again thousands of people. So currently, as we speak, we are talking about more than 6,000 residents within the Buipe township who have been affected. Some schools have also been taken over by the flood waters, and as we speak, these schools have been closed down and currently running a shift system with other schools. So what it is now is that the original schools, the pupils will go in the morning. When they close around 1 p.m., then the second set will also go for the afternoon shift. That is those who have been affected by the flood water. So that is the current situation now. And for the residents who have been displaced, getting even tents to lay their head has become a problem now.
Is it the case that in all of this, NADMO has not been able to provide the necessary relief items?
Yes, so for now, when the first incident happened, there was some level of relief items that was provided to the affected victims, including some from the office of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. But with this one, it is getting very serious, and as it stands now, no relief item has been provided. The first one that happened, the victims were given tents to put up small accommodation for themselves. But as it stands now, that is yet to be done, because the numbers are overwhelming and NADMO is yet to come in with relief items.
Right then, Christopher Mwako is my colleague. It is a subject matter that we will also continue to follow here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7 and here at Media General, to be specific. But we're doing politics now, where the NPP Presidential Election Committee is urging aspirants to thoroughly scrutinize the voters' album given to them ahead of the November 4 elections. This is to help with the process of unearthing any issue that requires resolution before the day of election. Speaking to the media, chair of the Elections Committee, Professor Mike Okoye, said the party is committed to conducting a transparent, free and fair election.
We want to let the public know, and remember, especially you, the media, that the present album is not a conclusive document. You start from somewhere, and in the process, people who should not be there should be weaned out. People who should have been there but are not there are also added, and that is the process. So actually, it's an initial list, and it is not a final list at all. All the candidates have been given copies, and if they have any misgivings or any suggestions, any additions or subtractions, they are most welcome to participate by way of bringing these to our attention. This we have done to a very considerable extent today.
That's Professor Mike Okoye, and we'll stay with the party a while longer because its leader in Parliament, Osei Mensah Buntu, says the time period for the election of a flag bearer of the party has become too expansive. This, he believes, is among reasons accounting for the disunity in the party.
The program to elect the flag bearer has been too expansive. I mean, it's been made to span over a very long time. Of course, I never imagined that we were going to go this way. But some of us were arguing that this whole thing ought to have held earlier. And the time span also ought to have been shortened. But we are in the Democratic Party. You may float an idea if the majority think otherwise. The majority will have their way. So we are where we are. But I think I must admit that is shaking the party a bit. I believe that we'll pull through.
Well, he, like he's been saying, says that the party is working to calm tempers and address the challenges being faced.
The chairman of the Council of Elders called, and I wanted us to have an emergency meeting involving component parts of the upper echelons of the party, the Council of Elders. Of course, the central party itself, maybe former president, the current president, maybe a couple of people from the parliamentary party, maybe from other major stakeholders in the party. Some of the pioneer personalities, we could bring them on board. Not too huge a number, maybe 9, maximum 11, to come together and address the problem, the challenge before us.
That's the majority leader in Parliament, Osei Mensah Buntu, there. Now, the Ghanaian taxpayer is still paying for the financial sector cleanup 7 years after managers of the economy made a decision to close down several banks and financial institutions. The Bank of Ghana, as you may know, in 2017 embarked on a cleanup of the banking and specialized deposit-taking sector in what it says was meant to restore confidence in the sector and the economy at large. This saw a reduction in the number of banks from 34 to 23, or 347 microfinance institutions, 15 savings and loans, and 8 finance houses had their license revoked. Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission also revoked licenses of some 53 fund management companies. The regulators cited corporate governance lapses, failure to meet new minimum capital ratio, and other infractions as the basis for the closure. Well, the exercise cost the taxpayer excess of some 21 billion cedis. A number of the managers of these banks are currently being prosecuted, and with just yesterday, an Accra High Court jailed former managing director for Capital Bank, William Atuesi, 15 years for his role in the bank's collapse. But what does this do in relation to the amount as expended by the state in dealing with the banking sector cleanup? Let's get on the telephone lines now. Dr. Orleans Lindsay is a lawyer and an economist. Let's pick his thoughts on this. Doc, many thanks for speaking to us this afternoon here on the bulletin. We've seen the jailing of Atuesian, but he could not pay the 90 million cedis in full. There are those who make the argument that with the trajectory upon which we're on, then the ordinary Ghanaian will have to bear the brunt of all of the monies used for the financial sector cleanup.
Yes, you can speak.
Yes, so I'm asking the question whether we're headed in the right direction, particularly in relation to this instance that we're seeing where Atuesian couldn't pay all of his money and now it's a loss onto the state.
Yes. What's the question?
Right. I think there's a challenge there a bit. So we're having the conversation on the costs, the cleanup costs that we've witnessed, and how government can be able to recoup the sums of money. We know that there's been a 5% levy placed on the profits of banks, and the government has been seeking to be able to recoup all of the monies, particularly from these banks. With what we've seen now, does it look like we're on the right trajectory with Atuesian not being able to pay all of the sum?
No, I think we must separate Atuesian's issue from the core issue of whether there was the need to actually intervene and close down some of the banks. As a matter of fact, there is information to suggest that it was necessary for the Bank of Ghana to have acted at the time. The only difference is that it looked like some of the institutions that were also in the same problem were left out. So it looks like the government acted with bias. And it is that which is called the problem, because if you're going to act with bias, then there was no need to have gone in there and targeted just a group of people who may not have been on your on your side of things. And that's what seems to have really colored the whole thing. But in terms of the need for there to have been the Bank of Ghana looking in and putting a hold on some of the banks, it was necessary. Now, of course, you can now ask yourself, the costs and benefits, has it been worth it? I think the costs have been much more than the benefits, because you see, obviously, what the Bank of Ghana was trying to stop was potential systemic and contagion risk. It didn't happen. Some of the institutions, you look at the NID, ADB being forced to take over NID. It means that the problems were there. The problems are still there. You look at some of the banks, they're still there. So we haven't gone out of it. I don't think it's been worth the risk taken. And because at the end of the day, the whole issue has now been pushed into a political thing, as if certain sides were actually supported, and then those sides perceived to be against the government were left and were then shut down. That has been some of the problems.
So given that we are already here, there's a 21 billion cedis gaping hole staring at us in the face. How do we get out of it? The banks are paying some levies, but it's still huge enough debt on our books. They're attempting to chase some of these owners to recoup some of the investment and liquidation of the assets, which has taken 7 years, and yet nothing has come out of it. How do we begin to plug or clog the hole that we've dug for ourselves?
Well, this is what should have been stopped in the first place. Of course, there's a need to punish some of the managers because if you look at some of these things, some of them, there was deliberate action on some of these managers themselves in bringing us where we are. But in terms of recouping the money that has been put, I think that really the costs have been too high. The Bank of Ghana didn't do a good job to actually assess the overall cost of clamping down on this thing. I don't see us being able to recoup all the money. At some point, those monies will have to be written off.
Right then, Doc, I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon.
Thank you.
That's economist and lawyer Dr. Orleans Lindsay speaking to us this afternoon here on the Midday News. That's how we'll just about end this afternoon's edition of the bulletin. But the MP for Ododo-Diodio, Nilante Vanderpoel, he's opted to bow out of Parliament. I will not be seeking re-elections after 2024. There'll be a lot more on this for you if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. I mentioned that's our bulletin. A lot more news as always if you log on to 3newstos.com. Bismarck Awusa, he's here ready and waiting to bring us the very latest from the world of business. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta.
Hello, good afternoon. It's time now for Business Daily. Coming up, Ghana secures 4th position on the list of African countries receiving remittances. Ahead, we will hear from a financial analyst.
It is a bit concerned if we are getting this quantum of inflows coming in, but in terms of the funds routing through the appropriate means for the economy to benefit from, if we are not getting the impact of these economies or
Also, Ghana set to benefit from $50 million investments to expand the country's data infrastructure.
Currently, we are targeting to build 30 megawatts of capacity through multiple phases in Ghana. That's what we'll deliver.
Plus, a financial analyst says recovering the cost of the banking sector cleanup should go beyond prison term.
All of corporate Ghana, showing that our legal systems work, showing that you can't get away with doing the wrong thing. That's wonderful.
I am Bismarck Ausa. These and many other stories after this break. Thanks for your company. Now to our very first story. Financial analyst Patrick Abankwaba has praised Ghana for securing the 4th position on the list of African countries receiving remittances. This achievement, he has said, significantly contributes to the availability of foreign exchange for the nation. However, he emphasizes the importance of reconciling the disparities between the figures in the Bank of Ghana's balance of payments records and the actual reported values.
According to a recent World Bank report, Ghana has emerged as the 4th highest recipient of remittances on the continent, with a substantial $4.7 billion inflow in 2022. The primary recipients of remittances in the region include Egypt, leading with an inflow of $28.3 billion in 2022, followed by Nigeria at $20.1 billion and Morocco with $11.2 billion. Patrick Ba, a financial analyst, underscores the potential benefits that Ghana could derive from these positive figures.
there are various benefits that we get from the inflow. The first one has to do with the influx of forex into the country. These funds are coming in sometimes dollars, pounds, or euros. And once they come in, they go through the banking system, and it gives Bank of Ghana a bit more forex that it can give to businesses that will need to import from outside. The second benefit is that once it goes through this bank, the banks also have access to these funds by way of getting some commissions, which leads to profitability for this bank.
However, despite the encouraging data on the report, the Auditor General's findings regarding inward remittances for the same year indicates an inflow of approximately $2.1 billion, raising questions about the whereabouts of the remaining $2.6 billion.
It is a bit concerned if we are getting this quantum of inflows coming in, but in terms of the funds routing through the appropriate means for the economy to benefit from, if we are not getting the impact of these economies or the sectors or the places that the funds have passed through, then it's a big concern, because the importance of these funds coming in through the official channel is what I said, is going to boost the economy. So if it's not coming through our appropriate or official channels, then we are not going to get the extreme or the full benefit of such remittance that we are recording as Ghana being the 4th in Africa.
And that was financial analyst Patrick Abankwaba ending my colleague Michael Obodu's report. Moving on, Ghana is set to benefit from a $50 million strategic investment from the United States International Development Finance Corporation. The amount is expected to be applied towards expanding the country's digital infrastructure to improve internet connectivity and enhance business transactions.
The African Data Centers, a Pan-African technology group, signed a memorandum of understanding with the United States International Development Finance Corporation to leverage the corporation's financing commitment to construct a first-of-its-kind data center in Ghana.
Currently, we are targeting to build 30 megawatts of capacity through multiple phases in Ghana. That's what we'll deliver. Initially, we will start with a 5 megawatt design, which is what you see on your screens. And we are finalizing all the design work for that, and hopefully we'll get started within the next 12 months.
Chief Executive of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, Scott Nathan, said his outfit is committed to helping communities and businesses develop.
DFC is focused on helping communities through supporting their development, economic growth, opportunity for people, jobs, but really there's very few areas that are more important for economic development than the kind of infrastructure necessary to connect to the world in the 21st century.
For her part, U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, reiterated her outfit's commitment to addressing cybersecurity threats in Ghana.
We hosted 7 U.S. cybersecurity technology and service providers, and they met with local partners and government officials to help address cybersecurity threats in Ghana. So we hope that there's more business there, and the data center will only stimulate that.
The $50 million investment to Ghana is a drawdown from a $300 million strategic investment earmarked for executing an ambitious plan to build data centers in 10 of Africa's largest economic capitals.
In observance of Customer Service Month this October, patron of Customer Experience Professionals Ghana, Margaret Techimaika, is advising businesses to consider social media both as a means to connect with their customers and as a potential threat to their businesses. She emphasizing that social media, when not effectively managed, especially by trained professionals, has the power to run down a business. These remarks were made during her interaction with the media on the sidelines of this year's Customer Experience Conference.
I don't want to mention it because it's a big company that it's actually, they were on Mate because somebody responded wrongly. On Make You because you are not prompt or you don't give a good response. You know, we're pointing fingers at people in the call center environment, but also on the social media page, it's real time. Within minutes, seconds even, your product is gone. So if you want to be on social media, you've got to pay attention. There are dangers, of course. You have fraudsters contacting you. I mean, you look at a contact and you can see this is not a genuine one. So you've also got to be alert and, have all your things up.
Patron of Customer Experience Professionals Ghana, Margaret Techimaika there. This is still Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. Moving on, a financial analyst, Joe Jackson, has observed recovering the cost of the banking sector cleanup should go beyond prison term. His comments come on the back of an Accra High Court imposing a 15-year jail term on the founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atu Essien, for stealing over 90 million cedis belonging to the bank. He has noted financial loss caused by the collapsed banking and financial institutions must be retrieved.
My sadness was on 2 levels. Number one is that more than a conviction, we really need to get our money back. The public purse was raided to resolve this issue. And if there's an establishment that funds have been misused, we have to get the money back. The conviction just shows that we haven't still been able to get the money back. And for me, that's sad. And then the second level of sadness is this. You see, Capital Bank represented local, indigenous ownership of our financial sector. Nobody is going to grow this country or our financial sector for us. Eventually, Ghanaians have to own it so that we can do the best for this country and not ship the money out or ship the money in, depending on where you stand.
Joe Jackson noted this should not be used to describe Ghanaians as not capable of managing banks. He thinks the sentence has the potential to strengthen corporate governance in the banking industry.
Now, for those who want to hand over our financial sector to foreigners, they will point to this and weaponize it and say, once more, this is just evidence that the Ghanaians can't handle the financial sector. Listen, we do have problems. We do have governance issues. We do have conflicts of interest. We do have insider trading. We do have related party transactions and all of those things. But despite our problems, we must find a way to get Ghanaian ownership. Anytime there's malfeasance and there's evidence that it has been, the light of day has been applied to it, those who did wrong have been convicted. It's a good thing. It's a really good thing, not just for the financial sector alone, but all of corporate Ghana, showing that our legal systems work, showing that you can't get away with doing the wrong thing. That's wonderful.
And that was a financial analyst, Joe Jackson, ending Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. Urban Blend continues with Black Rasta.
Ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars for the most spectacular event of the year on Saturday.